Every week at our gym, there's a moment that still catches me off guard. There's a group of little girls huddled against the wall, and they're cheering so loudly. They're watching their friends spar. They're watching their friends go at it. And they're so happy, and they're shouting names like, "Go Agmil, go Sisima, go Emka." What these girls are doing is they're blending both of their friends' names together as if both of their friends can win at the same time. Typically, when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in competition, somebody wins and somebody loses. And because our kids train with such dedication, oftentimes losses get very emotional, like this. But somehow, these little girls have found a way to push each other without pulling each other down. But it didn't start this way. My name is Eddie. I'm the father of these two amazing little girls. That's Estelle and Camille, year 6 and year 4. And I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for nearly 15 years. Let me show you. Yep, that's me right there when I was a white belt. This photo was taken about 15 years ago when I first started training Jiu-Jitsu. For me, Jiu-Jitsu has been a cornerstone. In some of my tougher times, the mats are where I found solace. Many of my training partners are also my closest friends. And so to me, Jiu-Jitsu is much more than a sport. It's a community, it's a lifestyle, it's a place where everybody is welcome and everybody is supported. Through my involvement in our gym, I've seen countless members come in for the first time, timid, unsure of themselves. But when they leave, they're completely transformed. And so as a dad, of course, I wanted my daughters to have the same. So when we set up the gym, one of my objectives was to bring my daughters in to get them involved, and so they could also develop a love for jiu-jitsu. They came to the opening day. As soon as we opened for business, I enrolled the girls in lots of group classes, but they weren't curious. They weren't excited. And for me as their dad, I felt it. I felt frustration, a little bit of disappointment, also some curiosity. Such a great sport. How come they weren't into it? But I couldn't show it because the last thing I wanted was for my emotions to be the reason why the girls didn't want to show up at the gym. And so I kept trying, and I kept bringing them. But at some point, eventually, I realized what I was doing wasn't working. And so that pushed me to rethink about my approach, and it completely changed my mindset. I went from wondering how I get my girls to embrace jiu-jitsu to maybe it's not about what they're doing, but who they're doing it with. In that instance, I started talking to the girls, and I told them, if you had to make this work, who would you invite? Who would be involved? Estelle's immediate reaction was objection. She said, "Daddy, I don't want to be that girl at school with a weird dad who forces her friends to do something that they don't want to do." And to be honest, she was right. That means there was risk here. I didn't want my girls to be labeled weird dad, but I kept on going, and I gathered a few names, and one by one, I started contacting different families. And imagine me adding somebody's family on WeChat, trying to convince them to come to our gym to put on a kimono that looks like pajamas but feels like a potato sack and roll around on the ground. Obviously, it was not an easy sell, but I kept trying, and finally, I came across one family, and in that very instant, I felt like I had hit the jackpot. This family understood jiu-jitsu. Their girls trained jiu-jitsu before, They were best friends of Estelle's, and shockingly, get this, somehow I felt like these girls' mom was more into the idea than I was. Seriously, this was her reply right here. All caps. Sounds great. And in that moment, my mindset completely shifted. This wasn't something that I was pushing on them anymore. I thought that this was going to be very cool. This was going to be their exclusive club. And it was going to be something that the girls felt proud to be associated with. I was so excited. And from that moment on, things started changing. Not overnight, not immediately, but incrementally. The first instance was a couple weeks after we had started our regular training. Our gym, we hosted an in-house competition. Over 100 members, kids from across Shanghai, signed up to compete. Two of our girls, Cecilia and Katarina, also signed up to compete. And all the rest of the girl squad, well, they came and they showed up and they came ready to cheer. And when our girls stepped on the mats, our girls were easily the loudest in the room. They were shouting, they were cheering so loud to the extent that they almost started to disrupt everybody else. Seriously, check this out. Pay special attention to the little boy in the back with the glasses on. Every time I watch this movie, it still gives me a little bit spurt because the girls were cheering so loud that the boy in the back literally had to plug his ears because he couldn't take it anymore. Another moment that sticks with me is each week when it comes time to sparring. Sparring typically comes at the end of class, and it's an opportunity for the girls to get out of their comfort zone, to step up, and to spar with one another. And the girls, again, are cheering so loud each time. They're waving their socks in the air for each other. Looks like this. And in that instance, I realized these girls are not confused about who to support. They've redefined what winning looks like. And through training, they're lifting each other up. Another moment that happened recently is Estelle came up to me after a training session one day, so excited. She wanted to tell me about this move that she had pulled off during her sparring session. We call it a sweep, but she had called it a roll. And she was so excited to share it with me. Not only did she tell me, she told me the exact moment in time that it had happened. Because what she wanted me to do was she wanted me to pull the CCTV footage so I could save it. Because she was so proud. And the next day, she followed up with me to make sure that I had done it. And it was in that instance I realized that something had dramatically changed. The girls' squad had become theirs. It wasn't about me. It wasn't even about jiu-jitsu. It mattered to them and to each other. And then something happened that I hadn't planned for. Every week we would train and everybody would stay longer. First, it was the girls, and then the parents. And then more parents came to come and watch and to hang out. Lots of shenanigans like this. And then before I knew it, every weekend, without exception, mandatory team dinner. So the parents could stay and socialize and hang out, and the girls could keep on playing well into the evening. So what started as a dad's attempt to get his kids to start training jiu-jitsu turned into something much more significant. It turned into a community. Not just their community, but our community. The girls didn't fall in love with jiu-jitsu first. They fell in love with the people. And it's for that reason they showed up. They pushed each other, and they trained harder. We as parents and we as leaders, we're always so focused on what matters. The right path, the right activity. But if you want someone to commit to something that's very tough, don't start with the activity. Start with the belonging. Because it wasn't the techniques, it wasn't the belts, it wasn't the training. It was the fact that they felt that this was their place and that this was their people. And it turns out that's what makes anything worth showing up for. Thank you very much for having me today.